Hello and welcome back to David Moriarty Sport. The first two videos on the channel have been very well received so far. The weekend review of last weekend's action and the reaction video to Arsenal win the Premier League title, which went out on Wednesday, as I said, have been very well received, which I'm delighted with. If you haven't seen either video, I'd recommend you go back and watch them. If you could like, subscribe and share the channel to people that you know that might be interested in sport and hearing a lad from Kerry waffle about it. That'd be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, this is the weekend preview. So first we'll have a look at soccer and go to the Premier League, where it is the final weekend of the Premier League season. We'll have a look there kind of at the top end of the table first, and there's a lot of European places still up for grabs. I think 9 Premier League teams could be playing in Europe next year. One of the real standout fixtures there is Sunderland against Celtic, I think at the Stadium of Light, where Sunderland, who are back in the Premier League for the first time in a very long time, have the possibility of playing in Europe next year, which just shows the greatness of the year they've had, and also kind of looks at the poor year that Chelsea have had realistically, that they might only just be able to scrape a Conference League position. They could obviously go higher, different games going on. Brighton, Bournemouth also. I think Brighton are fairly certain to be in the Europa League, where Bournemouth still have a realistic chance of playing in the Champions League next year, which is insane for them as well. So in terms of the top end of the table, they are the kind of the bigger ones to look out for in the race for Europe, which comes down to the final day. From the top end of the table, then we go down to the bottom end, and it's looking more likely that West Ham will be the one out of themselves and Tottenham Hotspur to be going down to the Championship after a 13-year stint in the top flight. West Ham are at home to Leeds and Spurs are at home to Everton. So what West Ham will need essentially is for a home win against Leeds and for Everton to go to North London and beat Spurs in their own backyard. Even a draw between Spurs and Everton won't be enough for West Ham, so we're looking more than likely that West Ham will be the team out of the two of them that will go down this weekend. From top to bottom, back up to the top again, Arsenal will lift the Premier League trophy as well on Sunday in Selhurst Park for the first time in 22 years. Away from the Emirates, obviously, but they won't care. They're going to get their hands on that illustrious piece of silverware that has evaded them for so long. Pep Guardiola will obviously, even though still hasn't been announced, by the way, I was talking about it briefly in the reaction video of Arsenal winning the Premier League on Wednesday, and I said then that Pep Guardiola's announcement still hasn't been made that he's leaving Man City, and even right now it still hasn't been announced. And at the time of recording this is Thursday, only 2 or 3 days away from the final game of the season, so it's very hard to know if he actually is leaving or not, but we're going to take it that he is from some very high sources that he is going. But he's going to bow out anyway at the Etihad at home to Aston Villa. Aston Villa won the Europa League last night at the time of recording this once again on Wednesday, beating Freiburg 3-0, so I'm sure they're not going to want to spoil Pep Guardiola's farewell, and he calls time on 10 years in the Premier League as one of the greatest to ever do it. And speaking of players calling time on their careers at a club, we say goodbye as well to Mohamed Salah and Andy Robertson, who leave Liverpool after around 9 years at Anfield. Another departure that's kind of being talked about in the last while or so is Alisson Becker. It hasn't been announced yet that he is going, so there's no talk about him having a big farewell as well on Sunday at Anfield, but apparently he's keen to join Juventus even if they don't have Champions League football, so there's a possibility that we will see 3 Liverpool players, 3 kind of iconic Liverpool players really, for the final time on Sunday at Anfield. No other soccer this weekend. We have the Scottish Cup final on Saturday between Celtic and Dunfermline. Martin O'Neill against Neil Lennon, so that'll be one to watch. Martin O'Neill could do a double, which will be an unbelievable way for him probably to go as well for Celtic. I don't see him staying on as Celtic manager going into next season, even though I suppose a lot of their fans would probably want him to. So I don't see it happening personally, but it's a great way for him to maybe just put the cherry on the cake after a good stint back. The German Cup final then as well is on. You have Bayern Munich against Stuttgart. It's a possibility of Vincent Kompany doing his first double with Bayern Munich. I think it's his second season with Bayern Munich, and he's built quite a brilliant team there. They obviously got to the Champions League semi-final, but was knocked out by PSG, last year's winners. They've a formidable side there: Harry Kane, Michael Olise, some great players, and Vincent Kompany's making a case for himself maybe to be a future Manchester City manager. And rounding off the soccer this weekend, we have a few English League finals, but the one taking centre stage is obviously Hull against Middlesbrough for obvious reasons. Southampton were expelled during the week for the whole Spygate kind of thing. So Middlesbrough are taking their place. They weren't too sure what the time of the kickoff was going to be, which is going to be very hard as well for fans of Middlesbrough and Hull, who have to go down to Wembley for the game. And the cost of getting down there and accommodation and things like that, messing around with the time of the game isn't really helping. But the whole thing is a bit of a farce. If that's another video that you want me to maybe have a look at in a bit more detail, leave it in the comments below, and I'll be sure to look at it fairly soon, maybe even after the final. It'd be mad as well if Middlesbrough were to actually win it. It's definitely never happened that the team that lost in the playoff semi-final actually goes up to the Premier League. What a story that would be. And the golf this weekend, we have the Byron Nelson in McKinney, Texas. Scottie Scheffler is the reigning champion there, and he's the bookies' favourite to retain the title this weekend. At the time of recording this on the Thursday evening, Brooks Koepka is the leader on -8 with Scottie Scheffler on -5, with the first day well underway. So a lot of golf left to be played. And in horse racing, the Irish Guineas Festival is on in the Curragh this weekend. A highlight of the flat season is on this Saturday and Sunday. Now, probably going on to the biggest one of the weekend, we have the first round of the All-Ireland Championship Series. First up, we have Galway and Kildare. Galway will look to come back a bit strong after the Connacht final loss to Roscommon a couple of weeks ago. I don't see them having too many problems, even though their previous games haven't been anything strong to go by so far. They just barely got over Leitrim in the Connacht semi-final, and obviously lost to Roscommon then by 2 points in dramatic fashion in that Connacht final. But I do see them in front of a home crowd getting over Kildare fairly easily. Then we have Cork against Meath in Páirc Uí Rinn. Has a potential to be a very good game actually. Cork obviously were brilliant in the first half against Kerry in the Munster final, but never really pushed on in the second half, and we haven't seen Meath since the Leinster quarter-final, where they got knocked out by eventual winners Westmeath. So it's a bit of a guessing game to actually see which team will probably come out the better. Obviously Meath beat Cork in the Division 2 final not so long ago, so it'll be interesting to see where both teams are as we go into the first round of this championship. Roscommon then against Tyrone. The Rossies could still be on a bit of a hangover from winning that Connacht championship a couple of weeks ago. So we don't know exactly what way they'll be. I'm sure they're going to be ready. It's a 2-week break. Obviously then we haven't seen Tyrone since they lost in that preliminary round of the Ulster Championship against eventual winners Armagh. So again, very hard to see where Tyrone are going to be and what they're going to be like going into this All-Ireland series. But Roscommon, obviously, after winning that Connacht Championship, you'd imagine they are going to be well up for it. And the one we've all been waiting for, Kerry are playing Donegal in Killarney. When the draw was made, it was one that everyone was had their eyes on straight away. GAA Plus and RTE had a fight over the rights to show the game, which obviously GAA Plus won in the end. But this is going to be a great game. Haven't met each other obviously since that dismantling of Kerry by Donegal in the Division 1 final in Croke Park a short while ago. So this one is just going to be an unbelievable watch. We obviously haven't seen Donegal since that Ulster quarter-final defeat against Down, so they're going to have obviously plenty of time to rest and kind of reflect on that heading into this big game. We last saw Kerry, as I mentioned previously, against Cork in the Munster final in Killarney. Cork were obviously the better team in the first half. Kerry weren't great There was a strong wind in Killarney, in fairness, but I still didn't think that they were that great. But they managed to push away all right from Cork in the end, but I wouldn't say they were totally convincing overall. Michael Langan is probably Donegal's biggest absentee heading into this game, with Kieran Thompson as well recovering from an ACL injury. Kerry were missing 8 of their All-Ireland winning team that beat Donegal in the All-Ireland final last July against Cork in the Munster final. So it'll be interesting to see who's on the kind of the team sheets once they're announced. Pat Spillane, I think, said recently on the Independent podcast, it might have been the Monday or Tuesday after the Munster final, that if the draw for the All-Ireland series hadn't been made before the Munster final, we might have actually seen some names who weren't on the panel. So as I said, it'll be very interesting to see who are on the panels for both teams once the lineups are announced. The Killarney atmosphere is going to be unreal, as it always is in these big games. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of reception Michael Murphy gets from the Killarney crowd after the antics in the Division 1 final. Tyrone referee Sean Hurson is overseeing the game on Saturday. So it'll be, for some reason I have this idea that a big call is going to be made. I think if early on in the game, I think it could be instilled in Jack O'Connor that he's probably going to say, lads, you have to give him a hit. Any sort of, if it's a shoulder, anything at all, let him know you're here, you're in Killarney, and it's going to be a tough day for him. But I think if Hurson maybe sees one of them incidents, I don't know, I think a big call is going to be made. I just hope that it doesn't ruin the overall kind of the feel of the game, the run of the mill of the game. I hope it doesn't kind of spoil what could be a big day, but I can genuinely feel a big call coming in the game. So yeah, that's the weekend preview. There's a lot going on as we talked through soccer in the Premier League, different cup finals, golf, horse racing, and obviously the GAA, which everybody is going to be glued to this weekend for, like I said, the game on Saturday in Killarney between Kerry and Donegal. I'm going to be heading to it myself, so I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully that my weekend review on Monday will be a positive one. But if you can like and subscribe, it'd be much appreciated, and I'll see you on the next video.